Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is season 2, episode 9 of the Unofficial Official Story. I'm Jennifer, and I am happy it's the holidays, my favorite time of year.
I'm Dwayne, and I just flew recently, and we had to do the landing 3 times. So this is right up my alley today.
And I am Koji, and I just got back from Vegas, and I tricked my way onto the family boarding pass with my kid. So I had like a C boarding pass on Southwest, which means I was never going to sit with my kid. I went to the boarding gate. I was like, "Can I go in earlier so that I could sit with my son?" And she said, "Well, like there's no more passes. You have to just go, but try to get on the boarding pass." They said, "How old is the family boarding pass?" And he said, 6 years old. And my son's 11. And so she's like, "Well, just try it." And so we walked in front of all these people to get to the front. And the funniest part was we were playing in a baseball tournament, and we were in front of all the people that we played against, and they're all 11 years old. And we walked past all of them. And then we got on the plane, and everyone's like, "Why did they get on the plane? Why did they?"
Right.
And then we got on, and we sat at the last row, which is great because in Burbank you could get off first. So
No, let me ask you this: did you guys win that game?
no, we got our asses kicked, so it serves them right.
Oh, okay.
This is a podcast where we're going to tell you the official story. So we look at the paranormal, conspiracies, unexplained phenomena, cryptids, true crime, and by the end of the episode, we're going to tell you what really maybe happened. In this episode, we're asking the question with our guest today, who's haunting Eastern Airlines Flight 401? But first, let's introduce our two guests, Jozlyn Rocki and Lloyd Waller. What's up?
Hey.
Welcome. I think we're starting with Jozlyn. We have some info, little bio about you. You are a voice and screen actor. Jozlyn brings real life experience as a wife, boy mom, dog mom, group fitness instructor, booty specialist. Very cool. 2 years of producing and hosting podcasts and 20 years as an on-air radio personality. Jozlyn founded, produces, and hosts Keeping Up with Chaos podcast, a fun for entertainment indie podcast where she brings on rotating guest co-hosts to have conversations with all different and diverse guests to chat about, well, chaos, because like everyone has a story to share. She also produces Raising Healthy Humans podcast and voices the intro for that. Recently, Jozlyn co-created and co-hosts a new podcast with 4 other voice and screen actors, From the Booth and Beyond podcast, where they document their lives inside and outside the booth from the very start of their voice acting journey. So basically, we got a pro in the house. Lloyd is a native of Las Vegas, Nevada, where he graduated from Legacy High School in 2011. He went to the University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota, where he graduated with a degree in mass communications. And now he's back home in the 702. Okay. He's the co-creator and host of the Broke, Black, and Bored podcast, media specialist, voice actor, improv newbie, and first-time DM for an absolute mess of a homebrew D&D campaign.
You're both voice actors. How did you guys get into voice acting?
Lloyd joins me. He's one of my co-creators from The Booth and Beyond. So we're together on that podcast. It's a new podcast. For me, I wanted to be a voice actor since I was 16. I had a friend of mine's dad who was a voice actor decades ago. And he said, "You have a great voice." And he showed me his studio. That sounds kind of creepy, but I just kind of set it aside and went to college to be an accountant because I thought that's what I should do. And then I realized that I'm not good with math, so I should probably not do that. And I got into radio. So I was in radio for a long time, moved to Florida, got put on ice. Radio's fickle. And I brought my job virtually before it was cool to be virtual and broadcast from my closet before it was cool to do that. And then they put me on ice, and I don't know. I eventually, through podcasting, a friend of mine, who's also an improv guy, told me about voiceover and where he was studying. So the rest is written.
So yeah, I originally went to school for English, and I ended up switching to mass communications because I was not a great student. And I had a professor who was an English professor, and the same semester I switched to mass communications, this person switched to mass communications. And I had a class with them, oral interpretation class, which is basically just, orally interpretation is a weird word for me. But at the beginning of class, she's like, "Lloyd, this semester we're going to bring out the dynamic you." And I was like, "I don't know about that." And it's interesting because years later, probably like 2 years ago now, I'm sitting at my current job, and I started right before the pandemic. So things were complicated and confusing, but I got to a point where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know what I want to do. What can I do that I would still be using my degree? And through weird, I feel like I went into like a fugue state because I don't remember how I ended up at the voice actor studio where we take classes. But yeah, I started taking classes and I heard that professor in the back of my head. Her name's Nita. Love her so much. She doesn't know I'm doing it, but she'll find out one day. And yeah, I've just stuck with it.
Lloyd, good meeting you, by the way, and Jozlyn.
Nice meeting you.
Are we meeting Dynamic Lloyd at this point?
Well, we'll say that Dynamic Lloyd, quote unquote, did not come out that semester, but we're definitely in that phase of my life, I think.
Very nice. Very nice. I really enjoyed hearing both your bios. And Jozlyn, I know we're here to talk about something else, but it's really, because Koji is also, I guess he's a boy dad, you're a boy mom. And it's interesting that you put boy mom instead of mom. So I was just wondering, what's the reason for that?
That's funny that you said that. I thought for sure you were going to go down the booty specialist route. I mean, for sure.
Right.
We just went right to boy mom, but that's okay. No, it's funny that you said, being a boy mom is just different, I don't know, like raising boys is different than having girls. And I wear that badge of honor, boys are high maintenance when they're little. And then when they get older, they want nothing to do with you. And so there's a big difference. Really, they don't. I have a teenager and he's like, I don't know. And boys are fun. I don't think I was meant to be a girl mom, so I'm proud of being a boy mom.
For the booty specialists, as a person who suffers from LBS, which is long back syndrome, if I'm ever in Florida or if you're ever in California, you could help me get over this lifelong affliction.
Yeah, we should get into it, right? Let's get this story straight. Let's tell our listeners about Eastern Airlines Flight 401 and let's dive in.
Let's do it.
All right, so here's some facts. On December 29, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 took off from JFK to Miami. And while over the Everglades, Flight 401 crashed into the Everglades, killing 101 people. Not all of the people on the flight, but most.
What happened to Eastern Airlines Flight 401? Simply put, human error. The landing gear indicator was out. The entire cockpit crew became obsessed with figuring out what was happening. And in the process, they did not realize the autopilot had been disconnected and were on a slow descent toward the ground. According to the final National Transportation Safety Board report, this is what they said. The failure of the flight crew to monitor the flight instruments during the final 4 minutes of a flight and to detect an unexpected descent soon enough to prevent impact with the ground. Preoccupation with a malfunction of the nose landing gear position indicating system distracted the crew's attention from the instruments and allowed the descent to go unnoticed. It's amazing. I actually had a conversation with my son about this where I was telling him, sometimes you get so focused on these little things, you miss the big picture. And this is literally that thing, right? Where like the entire cockpit was really obsessed with this one light issue, right? And they were so obsessed that they totally missed crashing into the ground. There's definitely a big life lesson in this experience. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to be on, like, could you imagine being on this flight and dying because these people were thinking about a light?
And I was thinking about this because we talk about this all the time in voiceover. Like, perfect is not the best. Being, trying to always be perfect or having, 100% perfection is not always ideal. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to dirty it up a little bit. And I remember listening that particular pilot was a perfectionist, right? So he was probably hyper focused on something,
Right.
So what happened after the crash? Well, after the crash, some of the parts from the crashed Flight 401 were used on other Eastern Airlines planes, which is a practice that still happens today, actually. So, of course, assuming, that the parts are safe and can be reused. So this is where it starts to get wild. According to legend and firsthand accounts, any Eastern airline plane with parts salvaged from Flight 401 became a hotbed of paranormal activity. So here are a few of the most famous. The vice president of Eastern Airlines boarded a plane from New York and chatted with someone in a pilot's uniform. He later realized that he had been speaking to the pilot of Flight 401, Robert Bob Albin. And another time, a pilot was sitting in the first class section of an Eastern Airlines flight, and the flight attendant tried to speak to them, but the passenger was unresponsive. She asked the pilot to talk to the strange passenger, and when he went, he recognized the man as Bob Albin.
it's super shocking to me that you could reuse parts of a plane.
Yeah, I know. I'm agree
Right?
with that. I did not know.
Isn't that
It's
crazy?
just a weird thing.
Like, for example, like if you get in a car accident with a baby car seat in your car,
Yeah.
you can't use that car seat again.
No.
Right.
Right.
Amen.
Right?
Right.
But if you get in a plane crash with a plane, you can still use those parts. Like that just seems, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want to be wasteful, and I agree with like reusing things, but planes are one of those things I don't want to reuse.
I mean, I feel like you could just melt it down and make it into something else.
Well, and if you think about this, just recently we had Hurricane Ian come through. So there's like thousands of cars that got just they're in the junkyard because they had, they were flooded and within 3 feet of if they're flooded by like up to 3 feet, you can't use them. You can't drive them. You got to get rid of them. So it's like to reuse a part from an airplane crash. Like it like blows my mind.
Especially where it crashed. It's. I mean, I guess it didn't blow up, but it was like in mud and water. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
Right.
outrageous. But I feel like Eastern, when you delve into it, there were a few like this super expensive plane, but like, they didn't spring the extra money to have like the ground recognition thing working, or they disabled this light in the cabin that would have been blinking to let them know they were close to the ground. It's just, it's just sort of like, I don't know, it's just where they chose to cut corners didn't make sense.
Yeah.
A flight attendant opened up the overhead locker and saw Bob Albin. Another flight attendant saw the face of flight engineer Donald Lewis Don Repo on an oven door, who said in front of 2 witnesses, "Watch out for fire in the plane." On the returning flight, the plane engine failed and had to be shut down.
Wouldn't it be crazy if you saw like a face in a locker?
I just hate that thought.
Yeah. Would you even stay on the flight and be like, I'm good.
No.
I'm gone. Yeah. Like, this is a bad sign.
It's one thing to see a face in a oven door, but if the face tells you something bad is going to happen, it's time to go.
Yeah. Final Destination is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm here to read the signs. Although I always try to think, I'm like, oh, was that a real sign or is that a fake sign?
Right. Oh my God.
You mean his vision, or oh no, we're talking about real life. I'm sorry, I delved way too far into Final Destination so quickly.
Right.
Honestly, if I saw a face or heard something, I'd wonder what they put in my drink. Because I'm always on an airplane. I'm like, get me a glass of wine quick, because it's like, you have anxiety anyways being on a plane,
Mhm.
So I would be like, what'd you put in my drink? Because, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe. And then I'd be like, get me off the plane now.
Here's a random question for you guys. Has anybody ever walked off a plane because of a bad feeling?
No.
Wow. No.
No.
I will now.
No, I haven't. But I was on a plane during this, I think the second or third Ebola kind of scare. Yeah, that was scary because we weren't wearing masks yet, and this one guy was kind of coughing, and everyone was looking at him like, "Oh, this guy's got Ebola," and that was scary. I probably thought about it on that flight more than I have in any other flight, but I didn't get off.
Okay, so this is from simpleflying.com. The link, of course, will be in the show notes. One day, the crew were in the cockpit discussing engineering when they discovered Don was sitting with them. He warned them of a faulty electrical circuit, which was then found and replaced. Bob was seen doing his pre-flight checks of the aircraft and told the ground staff it was all okay as he'd already completed the checks. The pilot was unnerved by what had happened and canceled the flight. Whilst in the cockpit one day preparing for the flight, the pilot heard loud knocks from under the floor beneath him. He opened the trap door to see Don looking at him, who then promptly disappeared. He wanted to look further and found a problem that could have caused a serious accident. So ghost sightings, or whatever these are happening.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about when I was reading all this stuff and doing research is that like these people are stuck doing their jobs over and over and over. I mean, that sounds pretty terrible. Like it'd be like me emailing people like all day for the rest of your day.
Right.
Purgatory.
Maybe they just have that level of commitment.
Yeah, and they want to make amends. They want to make amends for what happened. So
Yeah.
like they probably felt really bad about what happened, and they're just trying to avoid any other crashes.
Okay, so I have a horror story for you, Dwayne. For
Yes.
all of eternity, you have to be on stage. Like, you have to like tell jokes for the rest of eternity. I mean,
No, that's crazy.
at the beginning
That's
it's fine, and then at some point you're like, yeah. At some point you'd be like, oh my god, I'm Can I get off the stage?
I don't know, but if I told the joke that killed 99 people, then I might be okay with it. You know what I mean? Right. These guys, I actually think that calling it a human error, I think, is an overstatement. I think it was a perfect storm of things, not only human error. In fact,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
human error was the least thing it was, because it was on autopilot, and you brush against something, and then the autopilot cuts off. That's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
anyway, I
Yeah.
think if I don't know what joke I would tell that would kill 99 people, but yeah, I might want to make amends for eternity.
You might make amends.
Well, I was also thinking that, like, if he was a perfectionist and he was like, he had 30,000, logged hours
Right.
of flying, right? So if
Mhm.
they were telling him, if they were saying it was his error, I could see if he was a ghost that he would be pissed. Like, this is not my responsibility, maybe they like covered it up or something. I don't know. Like, and he was,
Oh,
trying
there you
to,
go.
he was hanging around like just to prove a point, I don't know.
I think an important question in regards to whether or not they feel regret is whether or not it ever registered that they had died in the first place.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh.
exactly.
Because I mean,
Right.
they're at the front of the plane, they likely died on impact.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So
denial.
They
So
think
they
they're
might
still
not
So
even know that
alive.
they're dead.
Yeah.
Wow.
they're just continuing to live their lives. That's good. That's a good note.
Yeah.
All right. So the paranormal activity wasn't just with the plane. People around the crash site reported seeing ghosts and strange lights. Here's a quote for an alleged witness. I was just frog gigging. I don't even know what gigging is, by the way. I just thought that was interesting. Frog gigging went. A face looked up at me from below the surf. A woman's face screaming up spooked me silly. Never been back to that place since that moment. Around here, we do our best to avoid that area.
Wow.
Chills. Like, I literally
Yeah.
have chills right now. Like,
Oof.
seriously, my hair is standing up on my arm.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I believe it.
You believe the sightings?
Yeah.
I do. I mean, it validates. I have to tell you, okay, can I share a little something with you guys? I seriously think my property it's a new house, but I think my property is haunted. Like, we've had some stuff that's happened, and it's like, I don't know, like, I just wonder, this validates the fact that, like, maybe something occurred on this land of property, or this whole land that's being developed so quickly that's aggravating some spirits that are not happy that our house is here, That's what I was thinking.
Oh my God, what's that behind you?
Stop it.
I'm just kidding.
Give us an example.
Nice.
Give us like the weirdest or most recent example of something that happened.
Late at night, and the doorbell rang, and we have Ring, and there's nobody there. And we watched the entire video, and there was nobody there. And I was convinced that there was a spirit. Like, my arm hair was standing up. My husband was convinced. We were super convinced. And then I had to talk myself out of it and, rationalize the whole situation, because it happened a couple times, and it happened when we first moved in too. And I was like, no,
That's
it's just a
weird.
tree frog. It's just a tree frog. Because, there's lizards and frogs, and we have spiders too. And I talked to someone who's in sort of that paranormal activity arena, and they're like, it could have been a spider. Yeah, it could have been a spider. So I'm just going to go with that right now.
Ringing the door.
Yeah, the
ring.
spider was
Those are
ringing the
heavy. You guys got big spiders over there, huh?
Yeah.
But that is kind of freaky.
Right. Did the spider also move the
Yeah.
couch?
Exactly.
She did say big spiders.
I said big.
Yeah. Oh, is that a spider behind you, Jozlyn?
Stop it.
Sorry. Okay, that was a callback joke. See, Dwayne, I'm a professional comedian too.
Yeah,
You are, absolutely. However, not everyone believes these paranormal stories are real. According to Admiral Cloudberg, a blog that analyzes airplane crashes, there's a simple explanation. This is how they explain the strange phenomenon around Flight 401. The story seems to have originated in a 1973 Flight Safety Foundation article about an engine failure on another Eastern Airlines plane. What's up, Eastern Airlines? Get your stuff together. Which jokingly described the pilot thinking he saw the ghost of Don Repo. Someone took this attempt at humor too seriously, and the story spread from there, often being taken as canon, even though no one saw a ghost until after the story was published. Nor was there any evidence that equipment from Flight 401 was actually salvaged.
Oh, see, that's how a joke, Dwayne, could kill 99 people, right? Somebody takes it the wrong way, right? Maybe
Right.
Hitler was a comedian, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, he's actually a dictator. I'm just kidding.
You're right. Someone takes it the wrong way, but it's like, I don't know. It's like telling me you ate a hot dog and you're like, oh, this hot dog has wasabi in it. And then like I eat a hot dog 3 weeks later, and then just because you said that, now I think my hot dog has wasabi. Doesn't make sense. Like I think you can't inception people to that extent.
That was the most random explanation, like example I've ever
Wasabi in your hot dog? Oh, God.
Yeah,
Right.
that actually sounds pretty good though.
It does actually. Yeah.
However, it should be noted that Eastern Airlines reportedly removed all the salvage parts of Flight 401 from their planes.
So, what do you guys think? Did the ghosts of Flight 401 haunt other planes? So, when we return, we're going to put our minds together, we're going to meld them and figure out what really maybe happened. Now that we've discussed the facts, let's put down our theories.
This one is tough because I actually believe what happened. I believe like I'm here for the ghost story. So what I will say is this: not only are the pilots haunting planes because they're still doing their job, and it only takes any itty bitty piece of that plane for their spirit to attach to it, but I also think every other thing on that plane is also haunted. So I like to think like the guys who were frog fishing and they came and helped the wreckage site. Like maybe they took a fish tackle box, and now whenever they go fishing, it's like easy peasy because there's a ghost that's like, yo, the fish are here, go over there. You know what I mean? So I think every piece from that plane, every person who died is somewhere helping people do whatever it is they do. So like if you can get a piece of it, like if there was a great salesman on that plane and you can get his piece of his luggage or something, then boom, you have access to him and he'll be in the room with you telling you how to always be closing. You know what I mean? Or ABS, always be spooking, as it were. Yeah, I think that, and only the reason the pilots, they have a high profile job, but I think that the whole entire plane is haunted. And, I wish that someone could sort of link it all together. We'd find that there's case after case, non-plane related things where these people are trying to help out. That's my theory.
Okay, so my theory is this. So you guys have all heard of the Mandela effect, right? That's where we're like all kind of believe that we've, like, for example, like what's a good one? Like, the original one is Mandela died in the 90s, but then he obviously didn't die, but we all remember that he did die, right? And to me, the best explanation of that is it was just a different timeline, right? It became a new timeline, and sometimes the timelines cross, and sometimes they get all mixed up, and that's why like Bernstein Bears is another one, right? Where we think they're spelled a certain way, or I swear Shaq was in a movie called Shazam, right? Or no, not Shaq.
Sinbad.
Sinbad was Shazam, right?
Okay.
I swear I saw that movie.
Okay.
So that's just where we got crossed, right? So
you're saying Sinbad was not in a movie called Shazam?
Oh
No.
my gosh, no, he was not.
No, he was not in it. Allegedly. But in the timeline I was in, it actually happened.
No,
It actually happened.
No, he's absolutely in a movie where he's a genie. So I don't know.
No.
Well, we were in the same timeline, Koji, because I remember that.
Yeah, me and you. So to go back to the plane, now I think that what happened was they just, in another timeline, they didn't crash. They figured it out. They aborted they realized that they'd pushed the autopilot, and then they fix it, they land. And so that in that timeline, they just kept going. And so the reason why they're haunting is it just seems like haunting, but in reality, they're just continuing on with their timeline, which was they're fine. Everything's there. I can't really explain the head in the oven thing. Maybe he was like behind her and the other thing. You could just see, I don't know how it works, but it's Mandela effect is what I'm saying.
So basically, like, we believe it happened, but it happened in another timeline.
No, yeah, in another timeline, they didn't crash.
Yeah.
And so they're just, but then the reason why we're seeing the ghosts is because sometimes our timeline gets all mixed up
and so
together.
you think you're living in that other timeline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Or they think that they're living, but we're seeing them just live their normal lives.
Like a portal opens up and
Yeah, exactly.
or like overlaps a little bit, right?
Yes,
Touch point.
correct.
Okay, got it.
All right. So my theory is that there's a guy that wanted to, I guess, carry on the legend. And so there was somebody that made it his mission to dress up as the Don and the other one, Bob. So that was my theory, that there's somebody there, sort of like the DB Cooper episode we did once, where everybody wants to be connected to this, mystery, and everybody wants to be DB Cooper. And so there's a guy that, goes on planes and likes to like freak the staff out. And so that's my theory, is that there was a mystery person that for a little while was trying to spook people by dressing up. And so there was actually somebody there. And then I don't know the logistics of where they went and things like that. And then the oven thing that maybe they were standing behind and they saw the reflection. Like, wasn't there one claim that they were up above in the storage? What is that called?
Yeah.
The overhead?
Yeah.
So he was up there one day hiding, the little guy. That's my theory.
So it sounds kind of like a bad guy in Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I was
Wait, what is
thinking
that?
The bad guy in Scooby-Doo, they always like pretend to be like a monster, or they pretend to be
Yes.
Oh.
they pretend to be right. And so like they're like, I would have made it had it not been for those pesky kids.
It's always a seemingly responsible adult.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's always a seemingly irresponsible.
And there was like
That's
they took elaborate
hilarious.
measures.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's perfect, because I'm going to bounce off of Jennifer. So I'm a skeptic believer, and I was thinking, I'm also on Team Dwayne, because I totally 100% believe that they were being haunted. But then my logical brain kicks in, and I'm like, how could that even be possible, right? And so I was thinking that, because if you go back to the two stewardesses where they're talking about going up and down the elevators, right? And they're in the kitchen, and they thought one was there, and then the other came down, and they were going up and down. And the one she thought for sure Denise, the stewardess, was playing a prank on her, and that she was actually in the cupboard. But they both felt like the other was there when they were passing each other and going up and down in the different levels. So that got me thinking that maybe these people from this company are like jokesters, right? Like they like to play pranks on each other. And so that maybe like someone came up with like a hologram, right? And it was like, it wasn't actually the pilot sitting there, because they literally thought he was right there and they're trying to talk to him. That maybe someone came up with a Scooby-Doo elaborate, concept, and like came up with a hologram to like really give it to him, right? Like to like
Wow.
a big prank. But I still believe that like this whole story validates that, like, the reason why I don't buy pre-owned or like used stuff is because there's energy connected to stuff. We're all energy, right? And I'm kind of a little bit woo. And so like if you have it could be just left behind energy, that could be there on those parts, especially if those individuals didn't realize that they died, So I'm
Right.
I don't know, I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted. Sorry.
What I like about the hologram thing too is that, that guy who was a code buster in World War II, Turing, I think his name was Alan Turing. His whole thing with how you test AI is if like you're talking to a computer and you don't know it's a computer, right? And so even if they weren't pranksters, if someone wanted to test their hologram software, it's like, okay, let's produce this hologram of this guy that these people know, and let's see if they call BS or if they truly think they saw him. And if they think it's a ghost, then that means your hologram is good and ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hologram Turing test.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that reported these sightings, so maybe they were testing the theory. Someone was testing the theory.
Right, right.
Interesting.
Oh man, mine is wild.
Oh, great.
Yay!
That's even better.
We like
It's somewhat of a mix between Dwayne's and Koji's. I like to blame things on the government because the government does things and everybody's like, no, the government would never do that. And then 50 years later, the government's like, we totally did that. Sorry. And everyone ignores it. So I think, barring the fact that it's fully paranormal, that these people were part of a secret government project that worked on interdimensional
I love it.
time travel.
Bring it.
Wherein, like, going back to Jaws's example with the elevators, you know how they always talk about the butterfly effect and not like affecting people, and what have it. And it's like, oh, well, one of these people was in the kitchen as these two ladies were passing by, and then they left, which is why, because they didn't want to screw up the timeline, but they needed the plane to crash so that whatever the government wants to happen happened. and these people are just teleporting on the planes and doing what they got to do to make sure the timeline is safe, and then leave.
Or as ordered by the government, right?
Yes.
Ordered by the
Yes.
And they've gotten so good at it that now nobody notices them, and that's why it all stopped. So,
That's funny because to call back to our episode about DB Cooper, remember the DB Cooper thing was
Yeah.
the theory we came up with. I came up with was that it was a tourist trap where you could pretend to be that you're in the future. You could pretend to be DB Cooper, and so you pay to go back in time and sit on that plane and be DB Cooper.
Wow.
And so maybe something similar here. Yeah. But there has been, like one of the most famous, I don't know if it's most famous, but there's a case about the Philadelphia experiment. Have you guys ever heard of the Philadelphia experiment?
Yeah, jog our
Yes.
memory. I've heard of it, but I forget.
It's about this ship, this warship that was allegedly like they figure out how to do interdimensional time travel. And so like it allegedly like disappeared and then it reappeared later somewhere else. I mean, I think it's pretty much been debunked already, but it's kind of like similar theories.
I believe that. I believe the energy and yeah.
So Lloyd's theory is that these guys are timeline hopping as per the government and occasionally getting seen, or back in the day they were occasionally getting seen. Is that right?
yep. And they've gotten so good at it now, people just don't catch it.
That's pretty dope. Have you guys seen the show Counterpart? It's like Man in the High Castle. Both shows are really good, and it's a 2 timeline, 3 timeline kind of show. It's really interesting.
Okay, so we're at the point in the show where we need to pick the unofficial official story, one that will, for once and for all, answer this question. So, what do you guys think? Which theory are we going to go with?
I liked everybody's theory, but I feel like Lloyd took a little piece of everybody's theory and just summarized it all, wrapped it in a nice little bow and package and tied it, gave it to us. So
Oh my, thank you.
Yeah, I'm the same. I really enjoyed everyone's theory. Like, I like the alternate timelines. I like the trickery with the guy in the mask, the Scooby-Doo villain. I love the holograms. Yeah, I would say Lloyd's as well. The thing is, when you think of government, especially the superpowers, and they don't want to lose, right? So not only are they fighting present wars and current and future wars, they're fighting past wars, right? Because they would love to go back and rewrite what happened if they lost. I'm sure someone in Germany is like, we could have won World War II. Let's go back and figure it out. So I just love that. I love that theory. I love it.
Good thing we didn't lose Vietnam, right? Oh no.
Exactly. That's funny. And the thing is, they're not. And here's the thing: they probably went back and game planned Vietnam over and over again, and each time we lost. So they were like, we don't need to go back and mess with that again. I like to think that, but I'll add this to Lloyd's thing is that there's the Men in Black movie. I don't know why. I just think these guys are the Men in Pink. Yeah, or some other color. I don't know. But it's definitely Lloyd's theory. I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
I vote for Dwayne or Jozlyn, the theory that there is ghosts and that they were seeing sightings of spirits and that those parts of the plane were haunted. Because I just want ghosts to be real, and I do. So in my heart, I believe that ghosts are real.
I like Lloyd's is because I just think if the government's so petty and it's like say we are mad, like we could go back in time and do lots of things. Like to do that is something the government would do. Like just something so petty of like that has really no consequence really of anything. I love that they would do that because that's exactly the kind of they're kind of bureaucrats that I know and love.
right.
Yeah.
So, like to do like little things that make no sense,
Right. Oh yeah. I also think sometimes I look at even something like the pyramids. I feel like someone in the future who wasn't on the winning side went back to rewrite the whole entire timeline, but they didn't quite go back far enough. So that's why we have things like pyramids and things like that don't seem to make sense given what people could do at the time. It's just because that there's a break in the timeline, and that's why those things exist.
I was thinking that, the ghosts are real and the parts did haunt the plane, right? But that maybe because there were so many people reporting it and then they kept covering up the reports, right? So the people in the upper ranks of the airplane company, Eastern, they maybe turned around and they were the ones that pranked them all because they were like, ha ha, if you really think that our airplanes are haunted, we'll make sure that it really is haunted. And then they brought in the holograms, just to stick it to them,
Or to make it more ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the more ridiculous it is, then the less people will believe the other more tangible cases, right?
Right.
No, so Lloyd, I assume you want to vote for yours, but you know,
I mean, there's that, bias, but I will say I think I'm all over the place because I never am like, oh, that couldn't be real. Like, I absolutely believe that it could be a timeline thing or government agents or ghosts. I've had my own experience with paranormal activities, so I'm like, I absolutely believe, if it's not government agents or timeline stuff, it's ghosts.
Oh.
The only thing I struggle with is that, like, and this is super pseudoscience, nobody knows how paranormal stuff works, but I feel like it would take such a tremendous amount of energy for objects that were related to the crash to maintain like the ability to haunt people long after and like so far away.
Interesting.
But I think Koji's, and now I'm like gonna be thinking about the Mandela effect. Like if they're going back and changing the timeline, like there are small things that are like imperceptible that like we would notice, but like there's just a lot more going on. Berenstein. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm just on the fence.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard.
Although I'll say, you guys heard the Fruit Loops Mandela effect, right? So some people think it's FRUIT, and other people remember FROOT.
Oh.
Right, which one is the right
funny.
one?
That is like a mind app. Like I am like, now I'm going to be thinking about this for days. Darn it, Koji.
Yeah, the Mandela effect is trippy, but it sounds like Lloyd's theory won, though, right? With is that right? Am I counting it right?
Even if Lloyd doesn't vote for it, it still wins.
All right. So that's the official story. And we're going to take another break. When we return, we'll figure out who each of us will haunt. If you could haunt someone, who would you haunt and why?
I gave a lot of thought to this. At first, I thought people I didn't like and stuff, but then I realized I want to haunt my ex-girlfriend, so that they'd think like, man, whatever happened to Koji? That was the biggest mistake I ever made, was not being with him still. Like, I don't know why. It doesn't even matter. I don't think about most of them, but I just think that'd be funny to do and just have funny to have.
But Koji, you can haunt ex-girlfriends while you're still alive just by being successful. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Well, okay, so I couldn't decide, but the first thing that came to mind was Donald Trump. I would like to haunt him for the rest of his life.
Yes,
Make his life
absolutely.
miserable.
He probably wants you to haunt him, Jennifer.
Oh, God. No, I got to come in disguise as like Joe Biden or something. Just like a disguise. But then part of me was, I don't know if haunt's the right word, but I was like, I want to be around after I'm gone for my son, Abraham. I want to be like haunting him, but I don't want to scare him.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's where
Like
I
a
was
good-
kind of
a
like.
good haunt.
It's interesting. I definitely thought of Trump too, not to punish him, but just sort of just to get him to tell the truth.
Oh.
Because you want to like, does he believe what he's saying? And he's not the only person like this. I know a lot of people who like do it. I lose sleep over it almost. Like, do they believe what they're saying? And if they do, okay, that's a certain type of bad, and if they don't, that's a different kind.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. If not him, I don't know. It's tough. Like, I'd go back and maybe haunt someone like a Malcolm X and try to keep him alive, even though I think they were going to kill him no matter what. If I could just keep following him, duck, watch out,
Yeah.
what he could have become, if we kept him alive longer. And then by haunting him too, you keep him from selling out, because if he starts to like go too corporate or something, you can just, become the mean ghost. You can be like good ghost, bad ghost. You know what I mean?
This is kind of like the Patrick Swayze ghost, right? Where he's like trying to protect
Yeah.
Demi Moore, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what happens in that movie?
Right.
I love that movie.
Me too.
And Dwayne, you could have the pottery scene with Malcolm X too.
Oh my God, that's a vision.
That's right. That's right.
That was burned in my. That is really.
That's hilarious.
I think you'd be down. Dwayne would be down. Whatever it takes, right?
Whatever it takes.
It's like, this is for the future.
By any means necessary. By any means necessary.
That's funny. I was thinking Ebenezer Scrooge, because Jennifer is saying that she's so happy the holidays are here, and the ghosts come and haunt him to make him be a better person or to make better choices, right, in life. And so that's what I was just
Right.
thinking. That's what I was thinking about.
So who'd you haunt specifically?
Well, you got my brain juices flowing. So I was like, am I haunting to be mean? Am I haunting like, my husband? Because like, what am I doing? Like, is it mean haunting? Is it good haunting? And like Jennifer's saying, like, I would want to see my boys and make sure that they're okay and like watch out over them. But
Good
then I was like,
haunting.
yeah,
Mhm.
good haunting. But then I was thinking, I might want to haunt Jason Momoa. I'm just saying because I mean,
I think that's a good haunting too.
I know, right? He's pretty hot. Like,
I know
whoops.
he's pretty beautiful. Yeah.
There's a wind
He's so-
blowing in your room. Sorry, your clothes just blew off. I don't know.
Right.
Oh man. So I definitely am on the train of wanting to haunt in like a haunting Scrooge McDuck way. Elon Musk, absolutely.
Oh, I knew it.
I knew immediately. I have a real like problem with Elon Musk. There's no such thing as an ethical billionaire. And like people just fanboy over him so much. It's ridiculous. And just because he has money. I always do this. I go back to, what was it, last year? The World Health Organization was like, Elon Musk could solve world hunger with $7 billion. And he was like, prove it. And then they did, but it was only a plan that would have worked for 3 years. And everybody on Twitter was like, oh, see, they proved that he can't do it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, he makes over $21 billion a year. So for less than a third of what he made last year, which will increase the next year, he could solve world hunger for 3 years. You're telling me it's not worth it. And it's
Definitely
like,
would be worth it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk, but I would just say if he was trying to save humanity with giving people $3 billion, I would be really suspicious of his like that's like an evil mastermind superhero kind of plan, right? I'm gonna feed everybody.
So thank you so much, Joz and Lloyd, for coming on with us. This was such a great episode. So glad you guys were here, fellow podcasters. You're pros in this. So please tell us where people can follow you and listen to the podcasts.
Thank you so much for inviting us to come on and hang out. I love listening to your podcast. I want to say this in the beginning. I think your podcast is really cool. Like I love listening to your episodes, and yeah, I'm a big podcast listener too. So I'm a consumer of podcasts. You can listen to Keeping Up with Chaos on all the the regular Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Same with From the Booth and Beyond. From the Booth and Beyond, we're kind of a soft launch. We're kind of new, so we don't have a website, but Keeping Up with Chaos, keepingupwithchaos.net.
You can find me at droidwaller _ on Instagram and droidwaller on Twitter. You can find the Broke Blackboard podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah. We're on like a little bit of a hiatus because life. So many people moving and getting new jobs and stuff. But we have a ton of content you can go back and listen to.
And thank you all so much for listening. Shout out to the Unofficial Official Story listeners. Thank you. Keep doing the ratings and the reviews on our new RSS feed, please. And we appreciate you because there's almost 3 million podcasts, and we're honored that you've chosen ours to listen to today. Please check out our website, unofficialofficialstory.com. We have our show notes there, and you can hear our past episodes. Be sure to come back next month to find out the answer to the question, is Cardi B an industry plant?
What do you mean, like an actual plant? Like she a tree? I don't know.
So much.
So basically, an industry plant basically means that instead of it being organic, like we all think of this like idea that these musicians or whoever could be like organically popular, like they just kind of like grow. Like an industry plant just means that this label or some rich people basically backed you to the point that you became successful because of their help. In other words, it's not organically they became successful, but because of like some other force within the record label industry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.